All right. I pray everyone can hear me now. We're getting ready to restart the lesson. Brother, let me know that they couldn't hear me. So let's restart this lesson. This is part 3 of Gentiles, marriage, and divorce. Still in the lesson we did earlier, which was talking about, O Virgin of Israel. So we're going to talk about the marriage and the divorce. This is all with his people. So this is O Virgin of Israel, but this is the marriage and the divorce. I was taking everybody through that lesson that we did about 30 minutes ago. I was taking them and I was going over the book of Isaiah. Okay, I went through verses 40, chapter 46, 47, 48, and I finished up with 49. Now I'm going to read something out of 49 to bring you into Isaiah 50, which talk about the marriage. Okay. First, let me recap verses 14, 15, and 16 of Isaiah 49, speaking about his people. Remember, the message never changed from the old covenant of the prophets, speaking of what would happen in the renewed covenant, to the same set of people. Thank you, brother. Thank you. Also, they were speaking of this Savior coming to save those Israelites from the tribe of Jacob, the 12 tribes, as well as Israel. Speaking of those scattered afar that we read about in Isaiah 49, the owls and those Gentiles. This is the same word, the same message that was being spoken of when the Father says, preparest thou me a body to do this thing. And he was that sacrificial lamb. All this was prophesied to happen. So he was going to gather all the way from Abraham, all his forefathers, to all that came all the way to the renewed covenant, bring them all back in, although they had still been scattered. Israel got scattered, but there was always a scattering that nobody seems to remember that took place at the Tower of Babel with Shem's genealogy. So we're looking at what the Father says. The Father says in Isaiah 49, but Zion said, the Lord hath forsaken me, and my Lord hath forgotten me. Can a woman forget her sucking child, that she should not have compassion on the son or the children of her womb? Yea, they may forget, yet will I not forget thee. Behold, I have graven thee upon the palms of my hand. Thy walls are continually before me. That's what our Father says. So I'm going to show you something. Keep going in Isaiah 50. Still speaking of his people. And we know that he gave Israel a bill of divorcement. Hosea chapter 1 and 2 speaks about that bill of divorcement, but then Israel coming to the Father, or a woman compassing a man, turning back from their sinful ways and turning back to the Father, a woman compassing a man. That's what Israel was going to do, and he was going to call them, you're no longer called not my people, but now you're called the children of the Most High, the living God. Okay, so in divorce part, let's read what Isaiah chapter 50 verse 1 says. Thus said the Lord, where is the bill of your mother's divorcement, whom I have put away? Or which of my creditors is it to whom I have sold you? Behold, for your iniquities have ye sold yourselves, and for your transgressions is your mother put away. Now, keep in mind, when you go to Sarah and Agar in the renewed covenant, he tells you that spiritual Israel, heavenly Jerusalem, is mother to us all. So that's why I was saying, when you read these commandments, people are thinking it's talking about a physical person. Well, yeah, it could be, but he was always talking spiritual. So he said he's the Father. He's your spiritual father, because God is a spirit. So he's the Father. Your mother is heavenly Jerusalem, because she's mother to us all. The Father told us, as we were reading chapters 46 through 49 of Isaiah, he kept saying, I born you. You remember what he did to Adam? He gave Adam the breath of life. He told Jeremiah, I knew you before I formed you in your mother's womb, in the belly, because that spirit came into the vessel known as Jeremiah. Just like we are known as sons of God, children of the Most High, children of the Spirit, so was all these prophets and these apostles and these Gentiles who came in. The message never changed, family. That's why you have to, like the Father said, renew your mind. Because, I mean, how can you hear when the only thing that's come to give you a word is the ones he told you? Look, they come running. And I didn't tell them to tell you that. He said, how can my people hear without a preacher? And how can that preacher preach unless that preacher be sent? Okay? So, we know that Israel got a divorce from our father. That was in Isaiah 50. Like I said, Hosea chapter 1 and chapter 2 speaks about that divorce. But let's go to Deuteronomy 24, verses 1 to 4 to figure out what the father was speaking of concerning a divorce. Remember, they were under a flesh covenant, so he gave them flesh words because at that time, that's all they could deal with. They were in Egypt so long, many of them got destroyed. Now they had their children who still kind of had some tradition in them because they only understood the flesh. So here's what he says to them concerning a divorce. Deuteronomy 24, verses 1 to 4 reads, When a man hath taken a wife and married her, and it come to pass that she find no favor in his eyes, because he hath found some uncleanliness in her. Remember, we're talking about the father and his people. It says, let him write her a bill of divorcement and give it in her hand and send her out of his house. And that's what the father did to us. Then he goes further and says, and when she is departed out of his house, she may go and be another man's wife. And if the latter husband hateth her, and write her a bill of divorcement and give it in her hand and send her out of his house, or if the latter husband die, which took her to be his wife, her former husband, which sent her away, may not take her again to be his wife, after that she is defiled, for that is an abomination before the Lord, and thou shalt not cause the land to sin, which the Lord thy God giveth thee for an inheritance. Because this was in relationship to like when Paul says, the man is the savior of the body, as Christ is the savior of the church. Then you keep reading down later, he says, but Paul says, let me tell you this great mystery. I know I didn't compare a man and his wife, but I was talking about Yahushua and the assembly, the bride, the woman. That's the great mystery. Well, it's a mystery here too when you think that he's only talking about, hey, the man is all righteous, put that woman away, you could do this, do that. That's why in the renewed covenant, when the scribes and Pharisees were talking about, well, Abraham, he said to give her a bill of divorce. The Father told him when he was walking this earth, God in the flesh, Emmanuel, God with us, he said, Moses put that in there because of your evil hearts. But it wasn't like that from the beginning. And he brought you back to Genesis chapter 2, this male and female that came together and became one because they had the same spirit. So we're reading what was in the law of Moses. Now, when you go to Jeremiah 3, you're going to get the understanding he was talking spiritually about his people. They had defiled themselves. They wanted to get them another husband, which they did. They played the harlot and had many lovers. But the Father has said once she does that, that woman, give her that bill of divorcement, don't take her back. Okay? Because she defiled everything. So he said, you see, I'm talking about my children. So here's what he says in Jeremiah 3, verse 1. They say, because we just read the law of Moses, and these wicked were among us back then. He says, they say, if a man put away his wife, and she go from him and become another man's, shall he return unto her again? Shall not that land be greatly polluted? But thou hast played the harlot with many lovers, talking about Israel. But he says, yet return again to me, saith the Lord. Because everything in the old covenant was done fleshly, because that's all the people couldn't understand, until in the new covenant, what was a schoolmaster to us, now became a living word, a word that we not just read and tried to keep, but spiritually everything was written in the table of our hearts. We could hear the Father. We could understand his spiritual word. So we're seeing that the marriage and the divorce, the Father wants his people to return to him. He says he loved Israel with an everlasting love. Can a mother forget her suckling child? Yet Israel says, Father has forsaken us. He divorces. But the Father lets you know, he said, I'm going to read it again because somebody needs to hear this. He says, they say that I've forgotten them. They may forget me. He said, but I will never forget them, my people, my bride, that virgin Israel that I married in the beginning. So I wanted to take you guys to that. Now, I want to bring you guys some other places because you're going to see how the message has never changed. Regardless if you're talking about the prophets of old, they were speaking the same thing, but the problem was the people just really couldn't hear. That's why any Hunani, any tare, any child of Satan, which parable of the wheat and tare, they got in with Israel and they kept leading the people astray. The Father told us in the old covenant he wanted us to circumcise our hearts, not our flesh so much. That's what he says in the new covenant. That's what it was all about, spiritual. Because only the spiritual children could truly hear the message. But the flesh ones were in there leading the people astray. And we got scattered many times. Some, like the northern kingdom, never came back in. So we're seeing the Father says in Jeremiah 3, but thou hast played the harlot, Israel, with many lovers. This is in the book of Jeremiah chapter 3. Yet return again to me, said the Lord. So the Father's going to find a way to bring his people to make a woman compass a man, that new thing that's going to be done on the earth through the vessel known as Yahushua, God in the flesh. He's going to make that marriage happen again. So when you read, O virgin daughter of Israel, he's talking about Israel in their uncorrupted state in the beginning. Not the, O daughter of the Chaldees, O daughter of Babylon. Not that hot mess that Israel had got itself into. Make sure you're listening to these messages in order, because I'm just trying to keep building so that you can start to read with understanding, because many will take you to these scriptures and they'll just make you think he's talking just to Israel, the northern and southern kingdom. No, the message, it can't change because the Father's not going to change. He's not going to tell the prophets of old one thing, which was prophecy for the future, and then the apostles, as well as Yahushua, which was God in the flesh, the same God of old covenant. He said, lo, I come in the volume of the book. He's not going to give them a different message. I pray y'all understand this. So we read in Jeremiah 3 where he said that Israel, you played the harlot with many lovers. That'll take you some places. Let's go to Hosea chapter 4. I'm going to read it two ways. Hosea chapter 4 verse 15. It reads, though you played the whore, O Israel. That was in the English Standard Version. The KJV reads this way, though thou, Israel, played the harlot. So now, I know people like to go to the old covenant as well as the new and say, that's a whorish woman. You need to be a virtuous woman. Well, baby, the Father was only talking to his people. Let's get it straight. Precept upon precept, but the Father defined his words and what they were talking about. The prophets of old told you that. Even Paul tried to tell you, the truth. Yahushua said when he talked about resurrecting the temple, everybody knew the vessel was the temple that the Most High dwell in, because we are spiritual beings. But in this dimension, you got to have a temple. So he said he perceived that they looked at the building and said, wait a minute, our forefathers, they did all this time to make this. You going to raise it? He was talking about his body. So a lot of times People say I'm spiritual, but you're not spiritual if you're not going to do as the Father told you. As he was in Old Covenant as well as New Covenant, parables are being said. These are spiritual parables, but the wicked are waiting for signs, and that's why they can't get this right. Let's go there. So we now know that Israel is that whore, or Israel played the harlot. A lot of people take these words, fornication, adultery, don't know what they're talking about because they're keeping it in the flesh and what man has said. Let's listen what the Father said. I'm going to take you guys to Revelation 17 because this is nothing but what the prophets of old were speaking of. We're going to connect it for you, okay? I know a lot of people look at Mystery Babylon and see, that's just America. No. Okay. The Father gave me this lesson this morning. I was finishing up this morning. I took a little nap, woke up with a sinus headache, took some medicine. Now I'm here. I'm good. Now we're going to get to it. So in Revelation 17, now since we understand through the prophet Jeremiah, through the prophet Hosea, through the prophet Isaiah, they all were talking about this woman being whorish. You know, this woman who should have been purity, you know, but no, she was a whorish woman, talking about the men, the women, the children, the whole family of Israel. That's what he was talking about. So when you get to Revelation 17, remember, Revelation is a revealing of what's already happened, and I'll tie it in for you. So picking up at Revelation 17, I'm going to read verses 1 all the way to 6, and then verse 18. You can read the whole thing yourself. But for what we're teaching today, speaking about this woman, this old virgin of Israel, the same old virgin of Israel was now termed virgin of Babylon, the daughters of the Chaldees. Let's read about it. Revelation 17. And there came one of the 7 angels which had the 7 vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, and I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore. According to Hosea 2, though you played the whore, O Israel, or though thou, Israel, played the harlot. So we're going to wonder who this great whore is. Here's what it reads. Remember, all this is in parables. That's why I'm going to give you the understanding, connect the dots so you can put them in there yourself and figure out who he's talking to. So in Revelation 17, once again, I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication. Not that they were just having sex with a great woman, a great whore. No, we read in the book of Isaiah, we could read all the way through Jeremiah, all those prophets were talking about how Israel had played a harlot. So he said, with all the kings of the earth, and we could read that even in the book of Kings. There were kings out there going with the Egyptians and different kings and, you know, marrying them, making them their father, fornicating with them, adultery. They're not being a virgin to the Most High, that woman that was married to him. So here's what it reads. With whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. And I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a gold cup in her hand, full of abomination and filthiness of her fornication. And upon her forehead was written a name, Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots, and the abomination of the earth. And I saw a woman drunken with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Yahushua. And when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration. Verse 18, and the woman which thou sawest is that great city, which reigneth over the kings of the earth. So right here, people will say, see, that's America, that great city. We're the #1 powerhouse. You're not reading everything. Matter of fact, the scriptures I've already read to you and what I'm getting ready to get into, you're going to see. Not so. This was taken out of Revelation 17, talking about the woman. There's many hints in here, but I want to connect the dots and let the prophets go to the renewed covenant to tell you this took place, and this is what the Father was speaking of. Now remember, he's talking about all his children, because he told you all are concluded under sin. When you're concluded under sin, you are in a state of being a Gentile, because he's not dealing with you like he was dealing with you. He's not saying that you're not his. It's just like he said, you played the harlot, and when you play the harlot, I will divorce myself from you. But he said, yet I say, return to me again. And he was making it possible for his people who played the harlot, this woman, this great whore, who Isaiah, Hosea, Jeremiah, all of them spoke of. So when you get to verse 2 of Revelation 17, I'm going to give you your key points. With whom the king, this great whore, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornications. So we're going to find out by going to Isaiah 51. He spoke of it. Let's find out what he reads. Remember, the message can't change, family. From Old Covenant to New Covenant, there's only one word. The Father says when that word goes out of his mouth, it's going to do what it was intended to do. So Isaiah was speaking about it. Now we're reading about it in Revelation, which is the revealing of how Israel started off first as a old virgin Israel to a old daughter of Babylon, old virgin of Babylon. Why was all this said? Well, let's go to Isaiah 51. Because she had a cup in her hand full of abomination. She was drunk. She didn't know her proper position. She was like a harlot, a whore. She was an adulteress. She was a fornicator, according to the Father. When you go to Isaiah 51, you're going to hear the same language. I'm going to read it to you. Isaiah 51. Hearken to me, ye that follow after righteousness, ye that seek the Lord. Look unto the rock whence ye are hewed, and to the hole of the pit whence ye are digged. Look unto Abraham your father, that Gentile, and Sarah, that Gentile, that bare you. For I called him alone. I called him when he was in the state of being a Gentile. I said, come out from among him, my people, through Abraham. That's what I told Abraham. And I told Abraham, you only got one son, your only son. I know you got two children, but you only got one by me, because I'm looking at spiritual children. So he says, look unto your father, Abraham, and unto Sarah that beareth you. For I called him alone and blessed him and increased him. For the Lord shall comfort Zion. He will comfort all her waste places. He will make her wilderness like Eden, and her desert like the garden of the Lord. Joy and gladness shall be found therein, thanksgiving and the voice of melody. He's talking about when he get ready to do this thing in the earth. And that was him coming upon the earth, taking away the sin, allowing you to have his spirit be quickened. Instantly you'll have white garments on, and do that judgment, because he's already weeded out all the tares, all the evil ones. Anyone whose spirit wasn't right, wasn't of his. He said, I'm not going to lose not one that you gave me, Father, because he's looking at the spiritual children. Because the physical children, they go lie to you too and try to get on Abraham's promises. That's why Yahushua called them out. He said, you are the ones that killed the prophets. Not only that, but ye are of your father the devil. The lust of your father ye will do. He was a murderer from the beginning, and abode not in the truth, because there's no truth in him. But our Father is truth, his spirit. We're now quickened. So here's what he says. Verse 3, for the Lord shall comfort Zion. He will comfort all her waste places. He will make her wilderness like Eden, and her desert like the garden of the Lord, the Garden of Eden. Joy and gladness shall be found therein, thanksgiving and the voice of melody. Hearken unto me, my people, and give ear unto me, O my nation, for a law shall proceed from me, and I will make my judgment to rest for a light to the people. My righteousness is near, My salvation is gone forth, and my arms shall judge the people. The isles of the Gentiles shall wait upon me, and on my arm they shall trust. See, we're reading out of the book of Isaiah. He was talking about those Gentiles too. He told you about Abraham. Let's get this right. He said, lift up your eyes to the heavens and look upon the earth beneath, for the heavens shall vanish away like smoke, and the earth shall wax old like a garment. Because we're getting ready to go into this spiritual kingdom now while on this earth. Because he tells you in the book of Ecclesiastes, the earth abides forever. It ain't going nowhere. So when you read this, understand parables, understand what he's telling you spiritual. So he said, lift up your eyes to heaven and look upon the earth beneath, for the heavens shall vanish away like smoke. Because remember, heaven is coming to earth. Thy will be done, thy kingdom come, thy will be done. Where? Heaven's coming to earth, right? It's going to be done on this earth through us. He said, I'll never leave you or forsake you, because he's dwelling in us. The kingdom's in us. So he says, this is all old prophecy that we're reading about in the renewed covenant. But right here, this is future prophecy for Isaiah, talking about the same thing the prophets were talking about. He said, lift up your eyes to heaven and look upon the earth beneath, for the heavens shall vanish away like smoke, and the earth shall wax old like a garment, and they that dwell therein shall die in like manner. But my salvation shall be forever, and my righteousness shall not be abolished. Hearken unto me, ye that know righteousness, the people in whose heart is my law, not the physical law of Moses, but in their heart, spiritual Israel. He says, fear ye not the reproach of men, neither be ye afraid of their revilings. For the mouth shall eat them up like a garment, and the worm shall eat them like wool. But my righteousness shall be forever, and my salvation from generation to generation. Awake, awake, put on strength, O arm of the Lord. Awake, as in ancient days, in the generations of old. Art thou not it that hath cut Rahab and wounded the dragon? I pulled Rahab, that Gentile, from among those heathens. Those are your Gentiles. They were spiritual because she was in the lineage that brought forth Christ. He couldn't have anything profane when the bringing about of Yahushua was supposed to take place. But people think that, oh, is he going to take that person over here from there and then, look, this is something holy. No, baby. These were spiritual children that were scattered since the first scattering. Rahab came in. So he said, let me go there again. Awake, awake, put on strength, O arm of the Lord. Awake, as in the ancient days, in the generations of old. Art thou not it that hath cut Rahab? You took Rahab on, and you wounded the dragon when you did that. Because if you go to the apocalypse of Abraham, that always fooled me a little bit. I couldn't get it. But it says that the Father, even those who derive from Azazel, will be counted as a seed, meaning those Gentiles. And that's what it was talking about, because he's bringing forth not just the people who had the covenant, the law, who were considered his people, but the people who were still spiritually his people, but never got the law, never got the covenant, and throughout the scriptures are known, ye are not my people. Then later he says, but ye are now the sons of the living God, because you have come in, because he has drawn you by the Spirit, gather you from the four corners of the earth. Aha, hallelujah. Okay. He says, I got to get my little sip. Give me a second, family, because Okay, we're in Isaiah 51. So we're going to read about this cup that was in this harlot's hand that we read about in Revelation 17. Let me keep reading. He said, art thou not it which has dried the sea, the water of the great deep, that hath made the depths of the sea a way for the ransom to pass over? Therefore the redeemed of the Lord shall return, and come with singing unto Zion, and everlasting joy shall be upon their head, and they shall obtain gladness and joy, and sorrow and mourning shall flee away. I, even I, am he that comforted you. This is Old Covenant speaking of God. Okay, he said there's no redeemer, there's no king besides me. There is no other God. In the renewed covenant, he says, lo, I come in the volume of the book is written of me. He said that in Old Covenant and New. And he is the Alpha and the Omega. He's the beginning and the end. So when he came as Emmanuel, prophesied to come, which was Emmanuel, God with us, or God in the flesh, who dwelt among his people, no message was changed. The same Father that said he's going to comfort his people, and his people are his spiritual children that he bore, he birthed. He took a part of his spirit and put into that vessel. That's why when you go to Ecclesiastes, the ones who were the heathens were called beast. They're fleshly, man. And then you had the ones that were called not beast in Ecclesiastes, but called man. He said when the Son of Man, talking about once they died, all the flesh got to return to the dirt. But the Son of Men is what they call it. Their spirit goes back up to he who gave it. But the beast, their spirit goes down, which is what the book of Enoch says. It stays right here, goes down. It doesn't go up. Or it does go back to he who gave it, but it goes down. Who's the father of the earth? We got one father of the earth, and he got children too. That's Satan. That's the prince of the power of the air. Children of disobedience of the earth that were not the fathers that came from above to this earth. That's two separate people. That's why it's important to understand Genesis 1 and 2. And understand there were people out there already. Okay, let's keep going. I'm trying to read the comments. Okay, I'm trying to read all the comments and keep it rolling. So the Father says, I, verse 12, I, even I, am he that comforted you. Who art thou, that thou shouldest be afraid of a man that shall die, and the Son of Man, which shall be made grass? Talking about the people out here. And forgettest the Lord thy Maker, that hath stretched forth the heavens and laid the foundations of the earth, and hast feared continually every day because of the fury of the oppressor, as if he were ready to destroy? And where is the fury of the oppressor? The captive exiled him. The captive exiled hasten, that he may be loosed, and that he should not die in the pit, nor that his bread shall fail. But I am the Lord thy God, that divided the sea, whose waves roared. The Lord of hosts is his name. Put my screen up, verse 16. And I have put my words in thy mouth, and I have covered thee in the shadow of mine hand, that I may plant the heavens and lay the foundation of the earth, and say unto Zion, thou art my people. Awake, awake, stand up, O Jerusalem, which has drunk at the hand of the Lord the cup of his fury. So this woman that was drunk, this whore that is going to get punished, right here we're reading, who gave her that cup? We already know the only one who could do anything, because the Father opens and closes. No man can close, no man can open. Once he does what he's going to do, he is in full control. But you got to understand that, because some of y'all think these people are in control. That's what the Father's telling us right here. So he tells the people, he says, awake, awake, stand up, O Jerusalem, which has drunk at the hand of the Lord the cup of his fury. Thou hast drunken the dread of the cup of trembling, and wrung them out. There is none to guide her among all the sons whom she has brought forth, neither is there any that taketh her by the hand of all the children, all the sons that she hath brought up. These two things are come unto thee. Who shall be sorry for thee? Desolation and destruction, and the famine, and the sword. By whom shall I comfort thee? Thy sons, thy children have fainted. They lie at the head of all the streets, as a wild bull in a net. They are full of fury of the Lord, the rebuke of thy God. Therefore hear now this, thou afflicted and drunken, but not with wine. thus said the Lord thy God, the God that pleadeth the cause of his people. Behold, I have taken out of thy hand the cup of trembling, even dread of the cup of my fury. Thou shalt no more drink it again, but I will put it into the hand of them that afflict thee. I'm going to give it to your oppressors now, which have said to thy soul, bow down, that we may go over. And thou hast laid thy body as the ground and as the street to them that went over. So we're seeing that this cup that this whore had was the Father's punishment on his people. He said, I only punish those I love. So we shouldn't hate chastisement. And we're reading about that here. But we see in Isaiah 51, who had the cup? Who gave that harlot, that whore, the cup? That was punishment. So when we go back to Revelation 17, verse 1 and 2, I'm going to read those two again. And there came one of the seven angels which had the seven vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore. That was that punishment we read about in Isaiah 51. He said, that sitteth upon many waters, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and that the habitation of the earth has been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand, full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. We keep hearing about this cup. So he says, and upon her forehead was written a name, Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and the abominations of the earth. And I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints. This is all Israel. And with the blood of the martyrs of Yahushua, Jesus. And when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration. Verse 18, and the woman which thou sawest is that great city. We're going to get into this word great city, as well as that whore, that harlot. We're going to find out who was this woman that, as you read in verse 4, was arrayed in purple and scarlet and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls. We're going to read who is this woman that had this golden cup. We're going to read about it. I'm going to take you guys there. But I'm letting you know these are words that are parable words. So it might say great city, but is it talking about a city, a place, a building, a church being a building or a synagogue, or 4 walls and a roof, or the truth of what a woman or a church or synagogue is today, which is our vessels, because we incorporate the Father's Spirit. It's his people. Okay, so we're going to find out who this great city is in a second. Let's go to Revelation 18. Revelation 18. Pick up at verse 16. It reads, and saying, Alas, at last, that great city that was clothed in fine linen and purple and scarlet and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, for in 1 hour so great riches is come to naught, and every shipmaster and all company in ships and sailors and as many as trade by sea stood afar off and cried when they saw her the smoke of her burning, saying, What city is like unto this great city? A lot of people want to say, see, that's America. America going down. This end times, all this stuff. Listen, We're going to keep letting the word interpret the word. We're in the book of Revelations. I can bring you to the book of Isaiah. I'm going to bring you some other places too, but you're going to hear the same understanding, the same prophecies of judgment. Who was this woman? Who was this whore? Who was this harlot? Who was this mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots? We're going to find out it was Israel. So let's keep going down. So he says, I'm going to read verse 18 of Revelation 17, bringing it forward. And the great woman which thou sawest is that great city, which reigneth over the kings of the earth. Revelations 18. picking up at verse 16, and saying, Alas, at last, that great city that was clothed in fine linen and purple and scarlet, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, for in 1 hour so great riches is come to naught. The judgment is going to take place. That's all it's saying. And every shipmaster and all the company in ships and sailors, and as many as trade by sea, stood afar off, they're looking at her, and cried when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, What city is like unto this great city? Verse 19, and they cast dust on their heads, and cried, weeping and wailing, saying, Alas, alas, that great city wherein were made rich well, let me read this again. Verse 19, and they cast dust on their heads. Who always cast dust on their heads when they mourned? Well, that was Israel from Old Covenant. So he says, and they cast dust on their heads when they saw this great city getting burnt up, getting destroyed. It says, and they cast dust on their heads and cried, weeping and wailing, saying, Alas, at last, that great city wherein were made rich all that had ships in the sea by reason of her costliness. For in 1 hour is she made desolate. Verse 20, Rejoice over her, thou heavens, and ye holy apostles and prophets, for God hath avenged you on her. This is Revelation. That's telling you who were the prophets of old speaking about. We went to Isaiah 51. He talking about this woman. Who were the prophets and the apostles back and forth? They were speaking the same language. The Father says, I change not. Why? So that ye sons of Israel, spiritual Israel, you're not consumed, you're not deceived, and you're not destroyed. The word is not going to change. Man will change what these words mean, but he says, I'm changing not. I'm not going to change, because I don't want you to be fooled when you go through this material. What I told my prophets pertaining to them and those who are scattered, known as Israel, spiritual Gentile, spiritual children, because I'm not even dealing with the physical ones who say, yeah, we came from the lineage of Abraham, and they really physically did. But Satan had snuck a spirit in those vessels. That's why you're reading about the parable of the wheat and tare in the renewed covenant. That's why the Most High told you, the scribes and the Pharisees, they're sitting in Moses' seat, because those little devils had made it all the way in to where they were in the lawgiving seat, which was set for Moses. Because when you read in the book of Jude, chapter 1, he said that Satan was disputing for the body of Moses, and all the Father did was rebuke him. Okay? He took over that body. That body was going to be used for the salvation at that time of the children of Israel to get ready to go into Jerusalem. They were still known as Gentiles, because even though they were Israelites, they got destroyed in the wilderness because they couldn't understand. They couldn't hear. Many of them had learned the ways of the heathen, became heathens. When they brought even some heathens into the group, if they would be obedient to the law, these strangers, these foreigners, they would be considered as one home board, just like when you read Ephesians chapter 1 and 2, talking about these Gentiles, these strangers, because Ephesians is a book talking to the Gentiles, but you would be as one home board, or one that's born in the family, because this is your family spiritually. Okay, let's go there. He says, Rejoice over her, thou heaven, and ye holy prophets, or apostles and prophets, for God hath avenged you on her. This was something that was done. Yahushua said he gave up the ghost after he said, it's finished. Phew. He spoke everything that was going to be. There was nothing new to teach the people, and they would get avenged of the wickedness. He took away their sins when he gave himself as our Passover. So Israel not could be passed over, and these plagues and all that, spiritual Israel would not experience that. But the wicked, the tares, who were in Israel, known as Israel, claiming Abraham be our father, but these were children of Satan, sons of perdition, children of that wicked one that kept coming through all Israel. They would be destroyed. And as We can read, I've read so many places talking about the dry bones waking up. Only spiritual Israel woke up. When you go to connecting the dots in Daniel 12, it talks about when Michael, which is Yahushua, spiritual, this is something spiritual was going to happen. When he comes and he sees all the bodies laying up in the ground, some are going to wake up to everlasting righteousness and others to everlasting contempt. And he said, the wicked, let them continue doing wicked. Continue to do your wickedness. He said, but these wicked, they're not going to understand what's happening. And these are the ones that's teaching, that's talking about a man, a woman, is talking about only Israel, or is talking about bringing in every nation that you see today, bring them on in. No, we're going to give it the truth. So he says, rejoice over her, thou heaven, and ye holy apostles and prophets, for God hath avenged you on her. And a mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone and cast it into the sea, saying, thus with violence shall that great city Babylon be thrown down, and shall be found no more at all. And the voice of harpers and musicians and pipers and trumpeters shall be heard no more at all in thee, and no craftsman of whatever craft he be shall be found any more in thee, and the sound of a milestone shall be heard no more at all in thee, and the light of a candle shall shine no more at all in thee, and the voice of the bridegroom and the bride shall be heard no more in thee. For thy merchants were the great men of the earth, for by thy sorceries were all nations deceived. And in her was found the blood of the prophets and of the saints and of all that were slain upon the earth. In this mystery Babylon, in this harlot, the book is about Israel. I can't say it's about the whole world. They got their history book. But the Father is showing you when you go to Revelations, this was that harlot, that daughter of Babylon that he speaks about. We read Isaiah. But he wanted this old virgin Israel. But right here, Israel's a harlot. So I pray y'all get that. I pray y'all understand that. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to read a little bit more because I do have a lot. God, I didn't know I had that much. We got to go a little further. We got to go a little bit further because now I read out of, excuse me, I read out of Revelation 17 and Revelation 18, tied it back to what Isaiah was speaking of, tied it back to Jeremiah. I can tie it to Joel, what the prophets were speaking of in the renewed covenant. All this was talking about the judgment. Everything had to take place on the people who would be judged. Some would be scattered and some would be gathered. The scattered ones are when you hear about that when he sends his messengers out, they're going to take the tares, bundle them, and throw them in the fire, but the wheat come into the barn. So we're hearing about, before all this took place, he was talking about a spiritual parable that the old covenant was talking about, but in the renewed covenant, he kind of give you a little understanding of what the prophets of old said. So you're getting a twofold. He was talking about his people Israel. They were as a harlot, like Jeremiah said, or a whorish woman. Isaiah called them the same thing. A lot of times it talks about Israel was committing adultery and fornication, according to the book of Hosea, chapter 1 and chapter 2. We're going to keep hearing the same message. So we talked about Babylon because he said, let me go there. We just read it out of Revelation 18. I'm going to take me some sinus medicine too in a little bit. But he said, he let you know. Let me read it. Where did I read it? Talked about that great city. Talked about Babylon. Trying to see where I read it at so I can give it to you. Oh, that was in the beginning, where it says, upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery Babylon, the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. So I got to go into this Babylon that's still confusing many people, and they're thinking it's America, a place, when it was always talking about the Father's people. So we can go back to Jeremiah 50, talking about this Babylon. Y'all ready for some more truth? I hope you are. I'm trying to keep these lessons kind of short, so I'm going to probably not get through very much of this. Take another little break, come back at you again. Charge up my computer, get me something to drink, come back, because I did schedule the lesson for all day. But since I took you to Revelation 17 and 18, whereby I came from talking about what Jeremiah said, that Israel was a harlot. She had many lovers, but yet he wanted her to return to him, taking you all the way from Isaiah, 46, all the way to Isaiah 50. Now we're going to Jeremiah 50, because he's going to talk about this Babylon. Let's see what Jeremiah 50 verses 1 through 8 speaks of, this mystery Babylon the Great. You're going to figure it out. Excuse me. Let's go to Jeremiah 50. I'm reading verses 1 through 8. Read with me and take time to really read these scriptures. The word that the Lord spake against Babylon and against the land of the Chaldeans by Jeremiah the prophet. Declare ye among the nations, and publish, and set up a standard, publish, and conceal not. Say, Babylon is taken, Bel is confounded, Merakadash is broken in places. Her idols are confounded, her images are broken in pieces. For out of the north there come up a nation against her, which shall make her land desolate, and none shall dwell therein. They shall remove, and they shall depart, both man and beast. In those days and in that time, saith the Lord, the children of Israel shall come, they and their children, and they and the children of Judah together, the children of Israel, the Jews, or the Gentiles. Well, let me just leave it like this. I'm not going to get into that right now. But in those days, talking about future prophecy, speaking of this Babylon, in those days and in that time, said the Lord, the children of Israel shall come, they and their children of Judah together, going and weeping. They shall go and seek the Lord their God. They shall ask the way to Zion with their faces thitherward, saying, come, and let us join ourselves to the Lord in a perpetual covenant that shall not be forgotten. My people have been lost sheep. Their shepherds have caused them to go astray. They have turned them away on the mountains. They have gone from mountain to hill. They have forgotten their resting place. All that found them have devoured them, and their adversaries said, we offend not, because they have sinned against the Lord. It's a rightful thing we do this, because they have sinned against their Father. He says, the habitation of just, even the Lord, the hope of their fathers. Remove out of the midst of Babylon, and go forth out of the land of the Chaldees, and be as the he-goat before the flocks. I don't think I have to tell you guys this, but I'm going to go there anyhow. What perpetual covenant was he speaking about in Jeremiah 50? Because this is something that was going to happen. This is almost like a retelling of Revelations, which many people think they're waiting for that big sky to bust open and New Jerusalem to come out of you. Who should be coming by to kill all the other people of the world? Well, that fornicator, that whorish woman, Mystery Babylon the Great, was speaking of Israel in their wicked state. So right here, the Father's talking about removing out of the midst of Babylon. He wants his people to come out from among her, my people. A woman could pass in a man. Turn out from that wickedness and come back to me righteously. And go forth out of the land of the Chaldeans, out of confusion, Babylon. and be as the he-goat before the flocks. So he says to his people with this perpetual covenant that would involve, in those days, in that time, nobody changed up the message. He said, said the Lord, the children of Israel, those Gentiles, they shall come, and the children of Judah, which is spiritual Israel with the 12 tribes, going and weeping. It says, going and weeping, they shall go and seek the Lord their God. That's going to happen. He said, they shall ask the way to Zion with their faces thitherward, saying, come, and let us join ourselves to the Lord in a perpetual covenant that shall not be forgotten. And that is the new covenant. And it's not that it's new, because it's still dealing with the same set of people. It's going to just include the Gentiles being brought in. So now, to make it fair, because everybody was on the same plane, all were concluded under sin, all were considered Gentiles. Now he made a spiritual new nation dealing with only spiritual children, not the tares that came in, not the world, only those who had come from above. We're not dealing with the flesh. We're not dealing with things that can make you righteous with the law. We're only dealing with the spirit man, and that's by faith. We're going to get into that another day, and that's going to be juicy. But he says, my people have been lost sheep. Their shepherds have caused them to go astray. They have turned them away on the mountain. They have gone from mountain to hill. This brings you back to the book of Enoch. It brings you back to the book of Jude. It brings you back to Genesis, if you truly know what happened in Genesis. Brings you to the book of Jasher, brings you to the book of Jared. All these books say the same thing, but here's what he says to them. My people have been lost sheep. Their shepherds have caused them to go astray, the leaders. They have turned them away on the mountains. They have gone from mountain to hill, which means they go from something big to something small down here. They have forgotten their resting place. Where is it speaking of the resting place? You better know this. Genesis 2, 2 through 7. I'm going to read it. The resting place. And on the seventh day, not that sixth day, because that was already done, finished with, the male and the female out in the world. So the resting place for the Most High's people would be your Shabbat day, your seventh day. It says, and on the seventh day, God ended his work which he had made, and he rested, this resting place. He rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had made. And God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because in it he had rested from all his work which God created and made. These are the generation of the heavens and the earth, when they were created. In the day the Lord God made the earth and the heavens, and every plant of the field before it was in the earth, and every herb of the field before it grew. The Lord God had not caused it to rain upon the earth, and there was not a man to till the ground. But there went up a mist from the earth and watered the whole face of the ground. And the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. So on the seventh day of rest, which is the day that he noticed, wait a minute, day 6, 1,000 years before, I created this male and female, but there wasn't a man to till the ground. It wasn't one of my children, a vessel that I could put my spirit in. So he gave this one vessel by himself the breath of life, put him in a garden by himself on this Shabbat day. This man was put to sleep, and his helpmeet, which was nothing but his spirit being chopped in half, his spirit that came from the Most High, which is pure spirit. The spirit is all he's dealing with. He took the half of the spirit, placed it in the vessel known as Adam. He took the other part of the spirit and placed it in a female vessel known as Eve. And now they were compatible. She was his helpmeet. She was his partner. She was his wife. So we're seeing that on the seventh day was a day of rest. We're saying that when you go back over to Jeremiah 50, and it reads, my people hath been lost sheep. Their shepherds have caused them to go astray. They have turned away on the mountains. They have gone from mountain to hill. That was in Genesis. They have forgotten their resting place. We rest in the Father every day because he is our rest. He is our Passover. He is our Shabbat, our peace. So it says, all that found them have devoured them, and their adversaries said, we offend not, because they have sinned against the Lord. So it's a lawful thing we do this because, they've sinned against their father. You can go and read how when Israel sinned, the other nations knew they can pounce on Israel at that point because the father wasn't going to be their shield that we read about in the book of Psalms. They had a disconnect. They were considered Gentiles at that point. They were still the fathers, just like the ones that were scattered from the Tower of Babel. They were still the fathers. The only difference was they wasn't in the covenant. But when we became that harlot, when we sinned, the Father cut it off from us, and we became Gentiles. The other nations could pounce on us. When we start turning to the Father and seeking him out, then he would put us back together with him and start fighting off these people. So these nations knew. I mean, go to the book of Judith. It was told there. Go to where, what is it? Ahab, I think. Not Ahab. I can't think. But the ones where the mule spoke and said, look, he was on the mule, and the mule leaned because he saw the angel of the Most High. But it was told to him that, listen, I can't mess with these people. I can't do this for you and mess with these people because they've not sinned. Only when Israel sinned, the enemy, look, when the hedge is broke, the serpent will bite. Same thing. Okay, so it says, my people have been lost sheep. Their shepherds have caused them to go astray. They have turned them away on the mountain. They have gone from mountain to hill. They have forgotten their resting place. All that found them, once they forget where they came from, once they forget the Father, all that found them have devoured them. And their adversaries say, we offend not, because they have sinned against the Lord, the habitation of justice, even the Lord, and the hope of their fathers. Remove out of the midst of Babylon, and go forth out of the land of the Chaldees, and be as the he-goat before the flocks. Now that was taken out of Jeremiah chapter 50. Remember, I was going through the book of Isaiah. Now we're going through the book of Jeremiah. I'm seeing if I want to stop here, though. Okay, I'm going to go a little further. I'm going to go to Jeremiah 51 now, verses 5 through 8. We're reading Jeremiah, another prophet that spoke the same thing as the apostles did. Because Christ was talking to both groups. He was known as God in the Old Covenant. He was known as, in a vessel, Emmanuel, God with us, in the vessel known as Jesus Christ, or Yahushua. He said, lo, I come in the volume of the book, it's written of me. I'm not switching up who I am, and I'm not switching up my people because I love my people. When I get the divorcement, I'm still telling my people, return to me, because I have this ever-loving, perpetual love with my people. Well, my people were not only Israel, because in the Old Covenant, the Gentile that I took first forth out of Babylon was Abraham. Made that covenant with him. So do you think I'm not going to, in the new covenant, bring all those who were on the other side of the gulf with Lazarus and the rich man somewhere in Abraham's bosom, while the rich man, he was in hell by himself, and there was a gulf, they couldn't get to each other. But I'm coming back for those in Abraham's bosom, those who are spiritual Israel that will come in. He's not changing up nothing he's doing. You've learned to lie if you think he's talking to everybody in this world. Let's read on. Jeremiah 51, verses 5 to 8 reads, for Israel hath not been forsaken, nor Judah of his God, of the Lord of hosts, though their land was filled with sin against the Holy One of Israel. Flee out of the midst of Babylon, and deliver every man his soul. Be not cut off in her iniquity. For this is the time of the Lord's vengeance. He will render unto her a recompense. Babylon hath been a golden cup in the Lord's hand, that made all the earth drunk. The nations have drunken of her wine. Therefore the nations are mad. Talking about Israel. The nations, the people, spiritual Israel. Babylon is suddenly fallen and destroyed. Howl for her, take palm for her pain. If so be, she may be healed. This is the same Babylon, mystery Babylon, talking about the Father used that nation, that wicked nation, Babylon, to come against his people. But his people, like Abraham, came out of Babylon, out of confusion. I'm going to read it to you again. I read to you Revelation 17 and 18, talking about this mystery, Babylon the Great, this great whore that sits on many waters with gold and silver and scarlet and pearls and all this stuff. But now she's known as the mother of harlots, speaking of Israel. So the Father tells you, the Jew and the Gentile, because this is an end time prophecy in Jeremiah 51, verses 5 to 8. For Israel hath not been forsaken. Those were the first to be scattered. Those were the ones that you could read Abraham being part of Israel. Or shall I say, and this is spiritual Israel, but yet he was a Gentile. For Israel hath not been forsaken, nor Judah, which compromised of the 12 tribes. The Lord and Savior came out of Judah. Okay, I hope y'all getting it. The message can't change, family, old covenant to new covenant, because he said, rejoice ye holy apostles and prophets. They were all talking the same message. For Israel had not been forsaken, nor Judah of his God. Israel, they knew who their father was. Of the Lord of hosts, though their land was filled with sin against the Holy One of Israel, flee out of the midst of Babylon, and deliver every man his soul. Be not cut off in her iniquity, for this is the time of the Lord's vengeance. This is the day of the Lord. This is Jacob's trouble. This is that white throne judgment. That's what this is what do you like to say, the millennium. What is a millennium? 1,000 years? Well, according to our Father's word, for us, it's one day. 1,000 years, 1,000 years, we think of 1,000 years. For the Father, that's one day. So when they put words and they mess up the people, they say, well, there's a millennium in Revelations. Well, that would be the day of the Lord. That would be one day for the Father. That's the day of judgment. That's the day of the Lord's vengeance. But read it. Pay attention. For Israel hath not been forsaken, nor Judah of his God, of the Lord of hosts, though their land was filled with sin against the Holy One of Israel. Flee out of the midst of Babylon, and deliver every man his soul. But he be not cut off in her iniquity, for this is the time of the Lord's vengeance. This is the day he will render unto her a recompense. Babylon had been used, Babylon, this woman that's holding this cup, mystery Babylon, because Israel was wicked. The Father threw Babylon on them to whip them, to get them into shape. But he's talking about the very end time before the great white throne judgment. This was Jacob's trouble. So he says, Babylon hath been a golden cup in the Lord's hand, because we read that cup of fury was the Lord's cup that he gave to Israel, Babylon. So right here, he said Babylon has been a cup, a golden cup in the Lord's hand. He did this to us, that made all the earth drunken, and the nations have drunken of her wine. Therefore the nations are mad. Babylon is suddenly fallen and destroyed. Howl for her, take palm for her pain. If so be, she may be healed. Okay, that word heal. Let's find out about who heals that mystery Babylon, that harlot, that whore. Well, go to Jeremiah 30. I say that because people think the apostles were bringing all the people of the world something new. For God so loved the whole world, not knowing who the world was, not even knowing who was over here, but he gave the whole world. He loved everybody, that he gave the only begotten Son. Now you got to do is claim and proclaim and believe, and now you are a son of the Most High. The Holy Spirit has jumped into this vessel, which the Father says that it's been done. The vessel's already sealed. So why are you evangelizing? Why are you telling lies? Why are you not telling them? It's always been about those who were under the covenant, and those Jews or those Gentiles, which was called Israel in the old covenant. The Father's word is not changing. When you go to Jeremiah 30, I'm going to read it for you. And this is a word. This is a long word. I might read this when we come back. Let me see. I'm going to take a look because I got a lot. Babylon is suddenly fallen and destroyed. Howl for her. Take palm for your pain. If so be, she may be healed. When you go to Jeremiah 30, I'm going to read it. I'm going to take a little time to read it, family. I don't have nothing else to drink, but I'm going to read it. The word of the Lord that came to Jeremiah from the Lord. Thus speaketh the Lord God of Israel, saying, Write thee all the words which I have spoken unto thee in a book. For lo, the days come, saith the Lord, that I will bring again the captivity of my people Israel and Judah. He was talking about the Jews and Gentiles. Come on now. Saith the Lord, and I will cause them to return to the land that I gave to their fathers, and they shall possess it. And these are the words that the Lord spake concerning Israel and concerning Judah, concerning the scattered spiritual children and concerning the 12 tribes. He said, For thus saith the Lord, we have heard a voice of trembling, a voice of fear, and not of peace. Ask ye now, and see whether a man doth travail with child. Wherefore do I see every man with his hands on his loins, as a woman in travail, and all faces are turned into paleness. Alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble, this great day, this day of vengeance, the millennium, the 1,000 years. Okay, so this is Jacob's trouble. This is the time of judgment. But he shall be saved out of it. Spiritual Israel, not all Israels of Israel. Paul told you that. So spiritual Israel shall be saved out of it. Verse 8, For it shall come to pass in that day, said the Lord of hosts, that I will break his yoke from off of thy neck, and I will burst thy bonds, and strangers shall no more serve themselves of him, but they shall serve the Lord their God, and David their king, whom I will raise up unto them. That's speaking of Yahushua. Therefore fear thou not, O my servant Jacob, saith the Lord, neither be dismayed, O Israel, for lo, I will save thee from afar. The Gentiles, Israel, the Gentiles, and Judah, and Jacob, and the 12 tribes. You're going to save them all. The message not changing, family. Let's read it. And I will, it says, Therefore fear thou not, O my servant Jacob, saith the Lord, neither be dismayed, O Israel, for lo, I will save thee from afar, wherever I scattered you, and thy seed from the lands of their captivity. And Jacob shall return. Spiritual Israel is going to come back at this point, and shall be at rest, and be quiet, and none shall make him afraid. Now this woman is called a hymn. These are parables for your spiritual understanding, because the message is not changing. So he says, For I am with thee, said the Lord, to save thee, though I make a full end of all nations, whether I have scattered thee, yet I will not make a full end of thee, but I will correct thee in measure, and I will not leave thee altogether unpunished. For thus saith the Lord, Thy bruise is incurable, and thy wound is grievous. There is none to plead thy cause, that thou mayest be bound up. Thou hast no healing medicine. All thy lovers have forgotten thee. They seek thee not, for I have wounded thee with the wound of an enemy, with the chastisement of a cruel one, for the multitudes of thy iniquity, because thy sins were increased. Why criest thou for thine affliction? Thy sorrow is incurable for the multitude of thine iniquities, because thy sins were increased. I have done these things unto you. I had that cup of fury. I used Babylon, mystery, Babylon the Great. I made the nations, my people, drunk. I put them all on the same level. Isaiah said, give them eyes they couldn't see, ears they couldn't hear. These people could hear and see, but spiritually there was a disconnect. They were Gentiles. He said, I gathered you from Egypt, now I'm going to regather you from the lands wherever I scattered you, the north, the south, east, the west. He told you all this would happen. So he said, all thy lovers have forgotten thee, this harlot. They seek thee not, for I have wounded thee with the wound of an enemy, with the chastisement of a cruel one, for the multitude of thine iniquities, because thy sins were increased. Why criest thou for thine afflictions? Thy sorrow is incurable for the multitude of thy iniquities, because thy sins were increased. I have done these things unto thee. Therefore, all they that devoured thee shall be devoured, and all thy adversaries, every one of them, shall go into captivity, and they that spoil thee shall be for a spoil, and all that prey on thee I will give thee for a prey. For I will restore health. I'm going to heal. I will restore health unto thee, and I will heal thee of thy wounds, because you was a mystery Babylon the Great. You was a harlot. That great city, Babylon, mystery Babylon. It was Israel. And when I say that, everybody was concluded under sin. Everybody was in confusion. Everybody sought out something else outside of the Father to be their protection, their power, their source, their husband. So he said, for I will restore health unto thee, and I will heal thee of thy wounds, saith the Lord, because they called thee an outcast, saying, this is Zion, whom no man seeketh after. Thus saith the Lord, behold, I will bring again the captivity of Jacob's tents, and have mercy on its dwelling places. And the city shall be builded upon her own heap, and the palace shall remain after the manner thereof. And out of them shall proceed thanksgiving and the voice of them that make merry. I will multiply them, and they shall not be few. I will also glorify them, and they shall not be small. Their children also shall be as aforetime, and their congregation shall be established before me, and I will punish all that oppress them. Because he's going to get this virgin of Israel, virgin of Israel. He's going to, at this point, after the judgment, he's marrying his people, baby. That's what he's talking about, this virgin. When he talks about they're going to be as before. Their children also shall be as aforetime, and their congregation shall be established before me, and I will punish all that oppress them. And their nobles shall be of themselves, and their governors shall proceed from the midst of them. And I will cause him to draw near, and he shall approach unto me. For who is this that engages his heart to approach unto me, said the Lord? And ye shall be my people, and I will be your God. That's what he was saying. I'm going to take Israel, and I'm going to put them to jealousy with the people who are not people. And he was talking about those Gentiles. Then he said, now, where it was said in this place, ye are not my people, ye are the people of the Most High, because everybody was on the same isles or the same plateau as the Gentiles, just like Abraham was. And I'm bringing y'all all in. I'm drawing you in by the Spirit, because you got to have the Father's Spirit to be drawn in. So he's going to take care of the matter. He says, and ye shall be my people, and I will be your God. Behold, the whirlwind of the Lord goeth forth with fury, continuing whirlwind. It shall fall with pain upon the head of the wicked. The fierce anger of the Lord shall not return until he hath done it, and until he hath performed it, the intents of his heart. In the latter days ye shall consider it. And that's what happened. He tells you in verse 31, he says, at that same time, let me make sure what I'm reading here. Let me see, how much did I say I was going to read? Shoot, it's a lot. Oh, no, I'm not going to read it up. That's all I'm going to read for you. I put in my show notes. You can read it yourself. Read Jeremiah 30 all the way through 38 to get this understanding. I'm not reading all that. Now, I'm going to go back to my notes because I'm going to wrap this portion up. We're not going any further than, let me see. Yeah, we're going to stop it there because I got a lot more to read. But I'm just going to recap Jeremiah 51, verses 5 through 8, and wrap it up. For Israel hath not been forsaken, nor Judah of his God. It says, of the Lord of hosts. Though their land was filled with sin against the Holy One of Israel, flee out of the midst of Babylon. This is that Babylon, great mystery Babylon, that harlot that sits on many waters. Speaking of Israel, he says, flee out the midst of Babylon and deliver every man his spirit, his mind. Soul is the conscious, the mind. Be not cut off in her iniquity, for this is the time of the Lord's vengeance. He will recompense unto her a recompense. Babylon hath been a golden cup in the Lord's hand, that made all the earth drunken, and the nations have drunken of her wine. Therefore the nations were mad. Babylon is suddenly fallen and destroyed. Howl to her, take balm for her pain, if so be she may be healed. Speaking of this mystery Babylon, his people. That's why I took you and read you the last part. I forgot it. I think it was in Jeremiah 50, I think it was. I read anyhow, or 30. But you can read all that yourself. Talking about, he still, even though he says that word Babylon, he was talking about that mystery Babylon, that harlot, that woman, that Jeremiah, that Isaiah, that Ezekiel, that Joel was speaking of, that the new covenant refers to. He was speaking of the same thing, the wickedness of the people. You old virgin of Babylon, you daughter of the Chaldeans, you were once in my covenant. You were a virgin, O virgin of Israel. That's what he wants to come back to him, and that's what he's going to marry. And that's what happened. It already happened. I'm going to stop there, pick back up at Jeremiah 31 when I get back. But for the time being, family, I got to take a break, okay? So Shabbat Shalom. Give me probably, I'm going to say, maybe another 20 minutes, a half hour, up to an hour, okay? But I got to take me a little break. Hey, thank y'all for being here. We're going to continue with the word of the Most High. Let my computer charge. Hey, Shabbat Shalom. All praises to the Most High in Yahushua's name for his beautiful word. Shalom, shalom.